Hey everybody, how are you guys all doing this evening? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I apologize for not being here last week. And I realized I planned on putting a notice up to say that I wasn't going to be streaming last week, and stuff happened and I was on a plane and couldn't, but oh well, sorry, but I'm sure you guys will live. Couple things I want to cover. The first thing I really want to address real quick is that I am way behind on emails. So there's like a backlog of emails, and I will get to them, guys. I'm trying. I will try to get to them as fast as possible. Some of them I'm going to address in this live stream for you guys, and then we'll get to it all. But so just be patient with me, and I will get there. Thanks so much for the super chat, Zach. I really appreciate it. And let's get on with it. So I'm just going to start addressing some questions. I had a really good question this afternoon, actually, so I'm going to put that one in front of the other ones because it's going to kind of cover some really important topics. Forgive me, I did not write down the person's name, but you had asked me a question about line sizing, and he was talking more on a residential setting. He was doing a walk-in cooler for a high dollar residential walk-in cooler, I guess I should say. So, and he was kind of curious about sizing the refrigeration lines, whether it be the liquid and the suction line for the system. Okay. And he was asking me, how do I go about that? The first thing is that, remember, and I'm going to stress this to everybody right now, is that I am just a service technician, just like you guys. Okay. I just do a lot of research and look into things. You guys also have the ability to, and I realize that a lot of people don't know where to look. And so I have no problem pointing people in the right direction, okay? And this person also specifically said he didn't want me to size the lines for him. He just wanted me to push him in the right direction. So, when you guys do ask me questions, you understand I'm just a normal dude that makes the same mistakes that you guys do. So, take it with a grain of salt, I guess you can say, okay? So, but when it comes to sizing lines for refrigeration systems, and we're talking about walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers, even remote prep tables and different things like that, okay? You have to take into account the pressure drop on the system, okay? The pressure drop's the biggest issue. And the next thing is that we want compressor cooling from the suction gas coming back to the compressor, and we want proper oil return coming back to the compressor. So we have to properly size our lines accordingly, okay? We have to add oil traps or P-traps to help get oil back to the compressor if it does leave the compressor. In a perfect world, you're going to design a system that has oil separators built into it so that the oil really never leaves, okay? But on the flip side of that, if you design the perfect system that has an oil separator and doesn't allow oil to leave the condensing unit section ever, then potentially you could run into problems with your expansion valve because you do need that oil to lubricate the components in your system, okay? So that's another thing too, but realistically, you're never going to make a system so tight that it's never going to lose any oil, okay? But when I'm sizing lines, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by leaning on the manufacturer. I say that with everything, okay? I'm going to communicate with the manufacturer, and I'm going to ask them what their opinions are, okay? It's very, very important to do some research, though, and understand when we're talking about line sizes, you're going to hear a term called total equivalent length, okay? And we also use this term in ductwork design too. But total equivalent length takes in the total length of the lines, okay? And it takes into account the, if you're dealing with ductwork, we can call it the friction loss through your fittings, okay, your 90s and different things. But essentially, it's the same thing in refrigeration piping, okay? So, I'm pulling these numbers out of nowhere, okay? But we can say like a 7/8 inch 90, let's just say it might have a total equivalent length of, let's say, a foot. It doesn't, but I'm just saying, in general, versus a smaller 90 and different things. So you have to take that into account. It might be 2 feet, it might be 3 feet in that 90, okay? And essentially what you do is you take the total equivalent length of all the fittings and then of all the straight runs of pipe, and then you add them up and you come up with your total length. Then you use that calculation to size your lines, basically, okay? But there's again, I'm not going to tell you guys how to do this because I don't know it off the top of my head. I've only done it a few times. Most of the time in the refrigeration industry, unless you're an engineer, you're not going to be designing systems, okay? Now, I will say that if you're doing like a retrofit, like this guy that had emailed me, yes, you will, but you might be throwing in a suction line and a liquid line. It's very rare on the light commercial and residential side, that you're going to be designing refrigeration lines for like a built-up system or something like that. A built-up system would be, a big giant industrial refrigeration system, okay, where you're going to have a separate condenser, you're going to have a separate compressor, you're going to have a separate evaporator. Most of the time, what we deal with in light commercial and the residential side, or I would just say light commercial, is pre-packaged units, okay? So I'm going to buy an evaporator that's already going to have a distributor on it. I'm going to add a thermal expansion valve to it, okay? I'm going to buy a condensing unit. That's a unit in itself. It's going to have a receiver, it's going to have the condenser, it's going to have the compressor, and it's going to have all the piping, and all I'm going to need to do is connect the liquid and the suction line, okay? So we don't need to get crazy technical into like the liquid drain and different things like that, okay? But most of the time, what we would be sizing is just the liquid and the suction line, okay? And to do that, like I said, I'm going to lean on the manufacturers, and two of the biggest ones that I would suggest, or two of the biggest resources that I would suggest you look up to do so, would be the installation manual for the particular type of equipment you're installing. Okay, that's the number one. Okay, I deal with a lot of Kraft refrigeration equipment. Kraft has a ton of resources on their website. Okay, if you go to heatcraftrpd.com and you research, there's a literature tab. You can click on it and you can find literature for all kinds of stuff. Okay, one of the coolest things that I found a long time ago on their website, actually it was before their website was even big, it was a manual that was in a supply house, was something called the Heatcraft Engineering Manual. The Heatcraft Engineering Manual, and I went and printed it out today because I can't find a printed copy at the supply houses anymore. But this is the Heatcraft Engineering Manual. Okay, you can. It's a document number H-ENG MO408. Okay. If I was a great guy, I'd put a link in the chat, but I'm not. Okay. So just go to Heatcraft's website and then there's a little search bar and put engineering manual. But this engineering manual essentially, again, is going to teach you how to do hand load calculations, which nobody's really going to do anymore. Okay. I hardly ever do a hand load calculation, but it does help you with sizing refrigeration lines. And you can use this to help you size refrigeration lines for other equipment too. Okay. The next thing, if you, any of you guys that have been in the industry long enough, I don't know if they still tell you guys to have these in school, but the Copeland refrigeration manuals, okay, these things are ancient, but they're very relevant to this day. I think these things have been reprinted and, added to it over the years, but I want to say that mine, well, this is originally copyrighted in 1969, and then it's been revised and reprinted. I think on the back of it, mine was revised in 1986. But it also helps you to cover, and you can actually see, this is from when I was going to school. I have little tabs right here that say different things. So this book right here was the book that I had to study when I was learning how to size refrigeration systems, how to do load calculations and different things like that. A lot of times we can find electronic software that can do it for us now too. But I'm not an engineer, so I'll still open up this Heatcraft manual to find out what size suction line I should use, what size liquid line I should use. But, other than that, I'm not really using it to do load calculations or anything like that anymore. But if you buy the set of, yeah, it does, Jason. Jason says the Copeland app has those, and it's really cool. But if you buy the set, it comes in a binder. It's got I don't know, it's probably got 6 or 7 manuals in here, but this is still a very relevant book right here that helps you to understand the refrigeration cycle and all kinds of stuff. Okay. Some of the pictures in it might be a little antiquated because they might be talking a lot of semi-hermetic stuff when, we're dealing with mostly scroll compressors and different things right now. But I will say that, with semi-hermetic equipment, we had a lot of wiggle room. Okay. And we had a lot of forgiveness in our equipment. And now that we're dealing with pretty much, I think Copeland's made a mandate that everything's going to go scroll. Even their little fractional horsepower refrigeration units are going scroll now. I don't know if they have a half horsepower scroll yet, but I'm sure they will soon. But when you're dealing with scroll compressors, something that came up that's been coming up and getting worse and worse is they need that suction gas coming back to the compressor more so than ever to cool the windings on them. And a lot of the scroll compressors, especially on the low temp, they had to do what they call liquid injection to help cool the head of the compressor off because they were going off on thermal overload. inside the compressor. So that's another thing too. So, even more so than ever, we need to make sure that our lines are sized correctly to, get that suction gas coming back to the compressor to help cool it off, so that way we don't have like a thermal overload issue on a high temp day. If you guys have paid attention to my channel, last summer I had quite a few videos where we had like a record-breaking heat wave here in Southern California, and we were having thermal overload issues on compressors, all scroll compressors left and right, refrigeration systems. And I'm going to kind of segue into another topic right now for another question, but this is perfect because, we tend to have a lot of issues on multiplex systems, okay? And a multiplex system, in my definition of a multiplex system, is a single compressor running multiple evaporator coils, okay? Now, in a restaurant, I can think of a restaurant where I have a refrigeration rack on the roof, and I have, let's just say, 10 evaporator coils all throughout in all the different refrigerators inside the restaurant. They're all remoted, and that's a multiplex system. So something you have to remember, a multiplex system, and this is where I'm kind of going into another question, but it's, kind of all has to do with the same stuff. When you have a multiplex system, here's the problem. You size the system for the biggest load, okay? And the biggest load is going to be when all those evaporators are calling, right? Well, when we're dealing with these multiplex systems, we're talking about little reach-in coolers most of the time, okay? So I might have a 2,000 BTU load in one of them, but then when you multiply that by 10, okay, you've got a big load. Well, so we size it for the biggest load, right? And let's just say 12,000 BTUs, okay? Well, what happens when only one of those evaporators is calling? And we're only getting 2,000 of BTUs running through that coil, and we're not getting the proper suction gas coming back to that compressor. Now, this is not a situation that a properly sized line would, it affects it, but that's not going to solve the problem. It's not that we don't have a big enough suction line coming back to the compressor. It's just that it's a very inefficient design in the system, okay? So more so than ever, you need the proper refrigeration line sizes, okay? But that multiplex system, I call them compressor killers, okay? Especially when we're dealing with like little reach-in coolers and reach-in freezers, because essentially when we have a restaurant that has a rack system on the roof and it's got a bunch of multiplex medium temperature evaporators, in the restaurants that I work in, we tend to have to change those compressors every 2 to 3 years. And, if we had a properly designed operating system, we shouldn't have to change that compressor for, 10, 15 years, okay? But it's because those multiplex systems do that. They essentially, some of them have like a low temp load where they might be running a pan chiller, okay? And that's going to be the least amount of load on that system. And there's multiple times in the summer where we might be running just the pan chiller. And we could have a really high temperature outside, and the compressors will tend to go off on thermal overload when there's really nothing else wrong with the system except for the fact that, they're only calling for a partial load. That's also a great argument for digital compressors. We have yet to see them really come into play in the light commercial sector, dealing with restaurants, but I have a feeling that once they make a small enough digital compressor, that's really going to help the life expectancies of these systems, because if we can have a digital compressor that basically slows down when there's no load, then, theoretically that system's going to last a lot longer. But, along with digital comes a lot of problems too. So I will get into the chat here in a little bit, guys, and answer some of the questions that are coming up and stuff. But I'm going to just kind of keep going with my topics right now, and then we'll get to it, okay? The line sizing. The other thing I wanted to bring up too about the line sizing is not only in Heatcraft's engineering manuals. Yeah, Vincent, Viston, Leslie. Variable speed compressor would, and that's what I'm talking about with like the digital compressors, because the digital scrolls, they can slow down and speed up depending on the load. So yeah, that would help, but we just haven't seen those come into the light commercial sector very much yet. I've seen them on ACs, but not so much on the big stuff. What's up, Dennis? How you doing, bud? The other thing I wanted to bring up was in, the condensing unit manual for Heatcraft. Again, you can find this on Heatcraft's website. It's heatcraftrpd.com. It also tells you how to handle the line sizing in these things too. So in this situation, if, the question that was emailed to me was, how do I size the liquid and the suction line? for this condensing unit with this evaporator coil. You just have to, basically just follow the instructions in the manual. And essentially it's going to tell you, the total equivalent length. And in these manuals, these Heatcraft ones, it's going to kind of generalize it and make it a little bit easier. If you follow the Heatcraft engineering manual, it's going to get a little technical. They kind of give you, within 100 feet, do these lines. Within 150 feet, do these size. When you get into the engineering manuals, it's actually you're going to do the math and figure out for 66 feet how long it needs to be. So you may find that the manufacturer's instructions might make it a little bit easier to size the lines accordingly. Okay. TJK HVACR, you said, what about hot gas bypass for a low load? Yeah, that would help. Well, let me think here. Yeah, I guess that would help. Why? Yeah, but there's something about it, honestly, that I can't think of right now that creates a problem with the hot gas bypass. And I'll have to try to think about it. Again, I'm not real. Sometimes I know there's an issue with the hot gas bypass that creates a problem on the little systems. Let me think about it for a minute and I'll come up with that. I know there is. Okay. Next thing I want to cover is, I'm just kind of going down the list here with my stuff. Those multiplex systems too, the compressor killers that I call them, you will see that a lot on like a Hvac, the older Hvac systems where they weren't running the glycol and they were just running just like normal pan chillers. And what you'll see, like I said, like 10 evaporator coils. And where we see the most problems is when just like 1 or 2 pan chillers is calling, because it's low temp, low pressure, very little refrigerant coming back. And that's when you really start to see the high temp issues. And after so many times of that compressor going off on thermal overload, it'll damage the internals of the compressor and cause a problem. And this mostly happens on the scroll compressors. So, okay. I want to remind you guys about the Sporlan BQ TEV kit right behind me right here. Okay, I have the giveaway going on next week, next Monday actually, April 1st. It's not a joke, no April Fool's junk or anything like that. Okay, I'm really giving that kit away. It's really easy, guys. If you haven't already, enter the giveaway. The Nightbot should be popping up the link here in a minute if they haven't, or he probably already has, so you can just go back in the chat. You just click on the link and enter your information. No purchase necessary. Just follow the instructions. Okay, I also have a video on YouTube that explains the instructions. I'm not going to go over all that right now. But everybody's got an opportunity to win this Sporlan BQ TEV kit, so I suggest you guys enter that. Okay, we've only got a couple more days. I think the giveaway is going to end, I think it's like in the morning on April 1st, and then I'll do the giveaway that evening on the live stream. Okay, so if anything, I would really, really appreciate if you guys haven't already, if you would go over to Sporlan's YouTube page and give them a sub, and then also check out some of their content they have. And again, just follow the instructions in the giveaway thing, and it'll explain it all to you guys. Okay. Oh, and the other thing about the giveaway too, you guys need to make sure you confirm your email. So when you enter the giveaway, there's a bunch of people in there that even though you entered it, you have to go back to your email and you have to hit the confirmation link. Okay. If you don't hit the confirmation link, your entry is not valid. So you got to make sure you hit that confirmation link, guys. Okay. Yeah. Timothy Solomon, the total, equivalent length fitting table is in the Copeland manual. Yes. Okay. You can also find it in a lot of other refrigeration manuals. It's just, that was the easiest one that I remembered just because I have it bookmarked in there. So if you look in the refrigeration manual part 4 system design, that's the one where it's going to show you how to figure out the fitting lengths and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, so make sure you guys, be careful, Ted. I'll give you a blue wrench right now, buddy. You can start banning people. Anybody wants a blue wrench, I give them out like nothing. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, just make sure you guys hit the confirmation email and finish the entry. That way you guys get it. Because like I said, at first I was trying to remind everybody, but there's so many entries now. So many. I mean, there's 503 entries, I think, or something like that into the contest. Yeah, so a bunch of people haven't done the confirmation email, and it lets me know that. So, those people will be disqualified essentially when it comes time to pick the enter. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go in here and see if I'm missing anything in the chat. If you guys are, if I missed any questions, any big questions, you guys go ahead and put them down in the bottom, and do me a favor and put them in caps lock so that way I can see them. I'm going to address one more inch here, and then and then I'll answer some questions too. So, okay. So another question that was coming up is about merch. Okay, I have made shirts. They are through Teespring. For whatever reason, Teespring was kind of being a pain in the butt in that. I'll get to your question here in just one sec, dude. So Teespring was being a pain in the butt in that I had a hard time turning off the link on my YouTube page. So you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and order the shirts now. I had said originally to a couple people like they may want to hold off because I'm actually getting my samples like tomorrow. Samples, I shouldn't say that. I bought like one of each shirt and I'm getting them tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that the logo was correct. So if you guys want to hold off for another couple days, that's fine. For whatever reason, it was hard for me to disconnect the link on the YouTube thing, so I just left it there. But nobody's ordered anything yet. So just give it a couple more days, and then you guys can order stuff if you want to. So, okay, many more. You said you have a vending machine and the evaporator coil is icing up on the top few rows. Could this mean that the refrigerant is low? This machine has no sight glass, so it's hard to say. Okay, that's kind of a loaded question, bud. If airflow is going across the evaporator correctly and you're getting frost only on part of it, you know, that could be a refrigerant. That's definitely a refrigerant problem, but whether or not it's low on charge, that I don't know. Okay, that's not something I can tell you right here, but you typically want to see more of an even frost pattern. But, you know, the fact that you can see the evaporator concerns me that maybe it's not getting the proper airflow across it. So, you know, you have to have the proper airflow going across the evaporator for the refrigerant to boil off correctly and do what it's supposed to do inside the evaporator coil. So, yeah, that's kind of a hard one to answer, okay? But it's definitely a problem of some sort, whether it be an airflow problem or a low refrigerant charge or something like that, okay? But yeah, typically on a vending machine, you're not going to see a sight glass or receiver for the most part, unless, you know, I haven't worked on a lot of vending machines, but most of the ones that I worked on have been little cap tube systems, little tiny things, so. Okay. Any other questions pop up on there? There seems to be some feuding and disagreement in the chat room. Yeah, I don't know. No idea. What else we got going on here? I'm going to pre-order the 480. Any objections to your... Okay, LA HVAC. So the SMED, that's actually great because that was one of the things I was going to cover too. Okay, I want to make it clear, you know, I really dig the field piece S-Man 480. That's the one I've been doing a beta test for them, okay? I did not purchase that manifold, but I will tell you that I've honestly earned that manifold, okay? Myself and many other great guys all over the United States have been testing the field piece manifold. Actually, not just the United States. There's a dude in Europe, I think, and there's people all over the place that have been testing their products, okay? And it is a really great manifold, okay? I just want to make sure that people understand that, you know, nothing is perfect, okay? The S-Man 480 is it has all kinds of great features to it. But there's flaws to it too. Okay. And when I say flaws, I mean nothing bad, but I mean, I just want people to believe, you know, to understand that like the connection on it, it has great Bluetooth connection. Okay. But it is not 100% as good as the iManifold was. Even though I don't use the iManifold stuff very much anymore, I have all their products. The range on the iManifold stuff is insane, okay, because it has the Zigbee protocol for the repeaters, and it's repeatable, okay? So even if you don't have range, you can throw a repeater in the middle. So the field piece manifold, I believe, is using the Bluetooth 4.0 or LTE or whatever, some fancy stuff. It's amazing range for Bluetooth, but it's not like the badass iManifold stuff that's repeatable. Okay, so it does have weaknesses, but I have been using the field piece stuff, and I have been on a 3-story building before, and I was able to connect to the evaporator 2 stories down. Okay, but then I've also been on a 1-story building and been on the roof, and it wouldn't connect. Okay, so it all depends on the interference when you're dealing with Bluetooth. Okay, and I'm sure maybe some of the guys in the chat can explain it too, but there's a bunch of technical jargon and stuff like that goes into interference and different stuff with Bluetooth, okay? But in my opinion, if I was to go buy a new manifold today, if I'm looking for a manifold, heck yeah, I'm going to buy that field piece, either the S-Man 380 or the 480 that will be coming out I'm told here anytime in April. Okay. So yeah, definitely I would buy it. Okay. Also need to make it completely clear, because everybody always sees me using the field piece manifold with the wireless clamps. Okay. It does not and will not come with the wireless clamps. I'm sure that maybe some of the tool companies will make a kit that comes with the wireless clamps, but for the I think it was more like $500, $600 price range of the manifold, it's not going to come with the wireless clamps. Okay. It's going to come with the normal K-type thermocouple wired clamps. It just has compatibility with the job link probes. Okay. So you have to buy the job link probes separate. Okay, so I just want to make sure. I was thinking about that while I was on vacation, because a lot of people send me emails thinking how cool they are, and it's like, man, I hope they don't get misled by me, okay? But hands down, Field Piece, in my opinion, is one of the better manufacturers of tools out there. There's a lot of good ones, okay? But they're one of the better ones because they have a great product, but they also have great customer service. Okay, so, and they stand behind their product. If something happens, and stuff's happened, okay? If you drop it or something like that, I'm not saying they're going to cover everybody's stuff, but Field Piece has always been really good to me, even before I started beta testing for them. Okay. So, and I've heard nothing but great things from other people too about their return policies and different things like that. Okay. So, yeah, but I dig the Field Piece stuff. So, all right. Let's see what else I'm going in here. Wow, cool. 115 people in here, or at least that's what Brian says. I really appreciate you guys. If you guys hit the thumbs up button, that really does help my stream. So smash that thumbs up button. It really makes a difference, okay? Okay, so Ralph, you said, why do you need a heater high limit if the defrost termination shuts off the heaters? That's a good question. So the heater high limit is a redundant safety, and what that means is that it's just a second safety device, okay? At least on a commercial package unit, we're going to have 2 high limit temperature switches on the heat section, okay, the gas heat section, just in case something happens. That second one's going to protect you, okay? On an evaporator coil, and I'm going to give you an example. When those strip heaters on an electric defrost walk-in freezer evaporator coil, when those strip heaters turn on, they're putting off quite a bit of heat load. You got to figure out, you got to think that they're going to melt, or they're there to melt essentially a totally iced up evaporator within 30 minutes, give or take, okay, is what it's typically there for. So it's just a redundant safety having that second high limit switch. And I'll give you an example. I had a restaurant that, and I wish I still had pictures because it was a good 10 years ago, but I had a restaurant that had, they were shut down, and a new guy bought the building, and it was an existing restaurant before. And power was left onto a couple things. And one of the things it was left onto was the evaporator for the walk-in freezer. But the unit had a bad compressor. Okay, so it just sat there energized for days and days and days, probably weeks, to be honest with you. And when we went to go survey the restaurant for the new owner, the fan guards for the evaporator were literally a giant glob of plastic running from one screw hole down to the ground. It completely melted the fan guards, and then it started melting some of the plastic racks that he had inside of the walk-in too, because it was sitting in an insulated space. The door was shut. The light was on in the walk-in freezer, and then the heaters were turning on and off essentially 4 times a day for 30 minutes. And this went on for so long until it actually brought the temperature up to the point that it was melting the plastic inside of the walk-in, okay? So those heaters, they do have the potential of getting pretty hot. So those safety devices are there just as a, like I said, just a redundant safety. Okay, so that's why you're going to have a high temperature limit on top of a defrost termination. So on a walk-in freezer, if you are in defrost and the temp gets above like 55 degrees or 65 degrees, somewhere in there is usually where the defrost termination switch is at. It's going to send power up to the X terminal. And if the X terminal is hooked up, and that's the key thing, because most of the time the X terminal is disconnected, but if the X terminal is hooked up, it's going to pump the defrost, or pop the unit out of defrost, and it's going to start the refrigeration system back up. But if someone has the X terminal disconnected, it might not pop the unit out of defrost, depending on, or even if the heater limit has been completely bypassed, which I've seen that before too. Or I'm sorry, the defrost termination has been completely bypassed. You can get some high temps. So it's more, again, just to make a short answer long, whatever, it's just a redundant safety. So, okay. Let's see what else I am missing inside of here? Okay, guys. Again, throw some more questions down in the bottom. I really appreciate you guys coming in here. Throw them down into the bottom, and I'll try to get to them, okay? Jason, you said you sent your resume. I'll have to look at, I can't remember if we had a conversation about that or not, but I'll see what you got in my email and stuff. Okay. Coming back to live streaming videos. Thanks, Darkstorm. I really appreciate it, man. Right on. How difficult was it to set up the digital evap control from KE2 Therm, and did I like it? Jason, yeah, I really dig the Key to Therm products. And so the first time I made a video on a Key to Therm product, I was very frustrated, okay? Because it was a Friday night service call to a restaurant, and when I went out there, it had a giant controller, and this was their Evap efficiency controller, okay? It'll be the first video that I had a Key to Therm. I think it was a walk-in freezer with too many defrosts was the title of the video. So just like I said in the video, and I think I showed my frustration too that night in the video, because I walked up there and I was like, what the heck is this thing? It was like a giant computer running the walk-in, and I just needed to get it fixed, and I didn't have a manual, and I was frustrated. I got the unit running. It was low on charge, and I pretty much ignored what the controller was saying. Luckily, the controller was still working, and I came back the next day. And when I came back the next day, I ended up getting a hold of Key to Therm and talked to technical support, and my mind was changed. I hooked up my computer to it, and this is their big controller, okay? This is the fanciest one they have. I hooked up my computer to it, and I realized how awesome that control was. So the next day, basically, my mind was changed, okay? That first night, I probably said some, I think I said some crappy things about him on the video. I think I was honest, you know, like this is junk and all this different stuff, okay? But once I got it set up, it was awesome, okay? And once I got my computer hooked up to it, it was like, wow, you know, being able to see the graphs and different things on the Key to Therm Evap efficiency controller, I can really see the savings that we could potentially have with that kind of equipment. And imagine if the customer would let me hook that up to the network and be able to access that from the office. They could call me and say, hey, my walk-in freezer's not working, and I could log in and look at the trending data. Okay, and on that particular system, I think I showed on that video, like I could tell, because that unit did have a refrigerant leak, and I could see the refrigerant leak in the trending data. You could see the temperatures slowly just going higher and higher and higher, and it wasn't like a giant spike like the compressor went bad. It was just a gradual change over a week. You know, and you could see it in the graphs, and it's like, man, you know, the ability with these digital systems and digital controls that we have, once we understand them and know how to work with them and get past the fact that they're different, okay, they're going to save us a lot of time once we get dialed in on them. Now, I have worked with a lot of their smaller controllers. Honestly, I haven't been able to sell one of those big Evap efficiency controllers to one of my customers because they're a big expense. And it's you know, to put an Evap efficiency controller, if you do it all right, you're going to put an electronic expansion valve. You need sensors. You know, you're going to have to rewire some stuff. It's nothing that I don't think would take me but 4 hours to install a system, maybe. I'm talking retrofit control system for one of their walk-in freezers or something like that. I don't think it'd take me but 3 to 4 hours to install it, but it's a big expense for the customer. So I haven't been able to sell one of those to one, but I'd love to. Okay. What I have been selling is their temp plus defrost controllers. Those things I've been using like hotcakes lately. Okay. So essentially it's a temperature controller with defrost built into it. I will say on the temp plus defrost, and I'm going to be honest with everybody. Okay. There is a flaw in it. Okay. And the flaw is the fact that you can't do a different timed defrost for different cycles. Okay. And what I mean by that is that in the controller, you select how many defrosts you want a day, right? And then you select how much time you want the duration of each of all the defrosts to be. Okay, you can't say, hey, I want defrost 1 to be 20 minutes and hey, I want defrost 2 to be 10 minutes. And so that's the only flaw that I see in the Key to Therm temp plus defrost controllers. But nothing's perfect. Okay, what I try to do in that situation with restaurants is I like to, in the middle of the night on a problematic system, I like to do an extended defrost. So like, for instance, I haven't made a video of it yet, but I was out on a service call this last weekend on a walk-in cooler that has a bad door and the customer needs to replace it, but they're not going to replace it for about 4 weeks. Well, the door literally keeps getting left open and it ices up the evaporator coil. So I was thinking about putting a key to Therm temp plus defrost controller on there, but I wanted to do an extra long defrost in the middle of the night. So instead, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to go back and put a Graslin defrost clock on there because I can change the duration of defrost to do a really long one in the middle of the night and then just normal defrost during the day. Okay, so, but I really dig the Key to Therm products, you know, and I have no affiliation with them other than me talking to them through emails and different things. Okay. So, you know, even if I did have an affiliation with anybody, I'm going to be, you know, like, I'm going to be completely honest about everything, guys. Okay. So if I start working with someone, you know, I'm going to be upfront with that person and let them know, like, you know, I'm going to say it like it is. That's how my channel works. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys what I honestly feel about things. So I'm not going to lie to you guys and try to push something down your throat that you guys don't want to hear or something like that. Okay. All right. So, I'm going to go back to my sheet right here real quick and adjust or finish what I'm doing. Okay. So I had another question about, and this is kind of a vague question, a little hard to answer, but it says how the person asked me, they have a small refrigeration company and they really want to get into like the chain restaurant work. Okay. Because I do a lot of chain restaurant work, and a couple things with that in the email. I can't remember if that was, I'm going to blend together a couple emails and just cover a couple things in this. I also got another email where someone said, hey, how do you stay so busy? First off, you got to understand, I'm not as busy as I look in my videos. Okay. There's times that I slow down. We're a struggling business just like anybody else. Okay. But you know, I tend to, I have a lot of, what do you want to say? I mean, I go out and I put up 2 videos a week. Okay. But that's not 7 days worth of work making 2 videos. Okay. So we're not as busy as you may think that I am. I mean, we're just like any other contractor. It's early spring. We're still kind of slow. So now with the chain restaurant work, someone asked how to get into chain restaurant work. That's a really hard thing to do. We have been involved in chain restaurant work since before I was part of the picture. Okay. Remember, I work with my dad and we've since partnered and we own the business together now, but he started it in the late 80s and, you know, just by luck got involved with one of the big chain restaurants and it's kind of gone from there. It's been that one chain restaurant that has led us to what we've done or what we do today, because when you're honest and you treat people right, when a manager leaves there and goes to another chain, they remember you and that kind of stuff. Okay. So to answer the guy's question, how do you get involved in chain restaurant work? The easiest way that I could say to do it right now is not the most favorable way, but it's get on with the refrigeration manufacturers and become an authorized warranty provider. If you become an authorized warranty provider, that gets you in the door doing warranty work. Warranty work doesn't pay very well, but it gets you in the door and you can hand out your business card. Now, that is not a fail-proof way to get in. I mean, with some of these big chains, it's almost impossible because it's getting to the point that they want you to take on, you know, all of Southern California. I've got some of them. They're like, we want you to take all of Southern California, and I can't. So then they don't use me and they use someone that will. Okay. But then they get dissatisfied because, you know, you run into problems with companies that big, but so it's a difficult thing getting into chain restaurant work. The easiest way, like I said, would be, in my opinion, to start doing warranty work and just go from there. I mean, it's really kind of a luck thing too. Once you get going with it, you got to be honest and you got to be fair and you got to take care of the customer. Sometimes you got to take a hit. You know, and chain restaurant work, don't get me wrong, it's not as pretty as it looks. I mean, we deal with all kinds of drama. You know, one of the things about chain restaurant work is they demand that you do their warranty work and they demand that you don't charge them any extra. Well, warranty work doesn't pay your normal rates, doesn't pay all the hours that you have involved. It's just one of those things you got to deal with. Okay. So you got to learn how to play the game and go with it. Okay. But all right. I'm going to see if I'm missing anything here in the chat. How many hours? Okay. So that's a good one, Clayton. How many hours do I work? How much family time? Okay, so that is a struggle. That is the real struggle when dealing with restaurant refrigeration or refrigeration in general, is how do you have time for your family? I got an interesting thing coming up where I'm going to address some of those issues coming up. I'm not going to reveal how we're going to do that, but I think that's going to be a really interesting topic. So that one is coming, but I'm going to kind of go into it a little bit right now. So to be honest with you, I have an understanding wife and I have understanding children. Do I spend enough time with them? No, absolutely not. Do I wish that I could spend more time with them? Heck yes. Okay. I've gotten to the point that right now, and this isn't great business practice, but this is what it is we turn down work because we don't want to get any bigger. Okay. It's probably, like I said, it's not good business because, I'm turning down work to new restaurant chains and different things. Okay. Because I don't want to sell myself short. I don't want to overextend myself. I used to do that. We used to go all over Southern California. I used to go to LA and it was nuts. Okay. Recently I had to go into Los Angeles, which is the scary thing is Los Angeles is only about 50 miles away from me, 45, 50 miles away. And the other day I had to go for a training class and I sat in 2.5 hours of traffic to get there and 2.5 hours of traffic to get home. I don't like that anymore. I don't like doing that anymore. So it's not worth the struggle to me. I let go of a bunch of restaurant customers recently. Oh, I should say 5 years ago, because they were in the LA area and they were good paying customers and some of my busiest customers. They were great money and they paid me for travel time too. We got paid to drive to the customer's job site. We always made an agreement with the customer that we wouldn't charge them any more than an hour travel time there, sometimes an hour and a half, just depending. So we never got all of our travel time, but we gave that up because the experience on all of our guys and the stress on all of our guys was just too much. Okay. So again, probably not the greatest business thing, but it made our employees happy. So we had to cut back on some of that stuff. So right now, we're a little bit slow. Realistically, I'm working about 35 hours a week. Most of my guys are probably getting 40 hours a week, right in there, 35 to 40 hours a week. And I spend, quite a bit of time at home right now. But, the springtime's coming. It's going to get hot. We're going to hit temps above 110, 115 out here in SoCal this summer, and we're going to be busy. And I'm going to essentially be working probably 60 hours, 65-hour work weeks. So it's not too crazy. We try to keep enough guys, but I'll be doing 65 hours during the summer. So yeah, it gets harder and harder to spend time at home. So, it's just one of those things. I don't have the answer for that one. It's a difficult struggle. I just, do my best. Okie dokie. See, yeah, California traffic is terrible. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Throw them down in the bottom of the chat and put them in a caps lock so that way I can get to them. I'm going to go on to some of my other stuff. Okay, I got to say a very, very special thank you. I'm not going to say his last name, but his first name is Cyrus. He's an Air Force, or he's in the Air Force, and he's deployed overseas right now. Thank you for your service, Cyrus. I really appreciate that. He reached out to me because he wanted my opinion. I'm not going to tell you that I saved the day or anything like that. I didn't. Cyrus already had his problem figured out. He's a service technician in the Air Force. He's on an Air Force base overseas, and he reached out to me because he just wanted a second opinion on something that he already diagnosed. Okay, again, I really didn't do anything other than listen to what he had to say and kind of basically confirm his diagnosis, which is that the system more than likely has a bad compressor. And I got to say, I was so stoked, okay, to be able to help him or at least just talk to him. That was the coolest thing in the world, to be able to talk to someone wherever he was at, okay? But then on top of that, like 2 weeks later, I don't even ask me how, I got a package in the mail and it was full of a bunch of like great coffees and chocolates and different things. Cyrus, dude, that was totally unneeded, but thank you so very much, dude. It was bitching. Just super thanking. I'm not asking, I don't want anybody to send me anything or anything like that, okay? Because I didn't give the guy my address or anything like that, okay? But I was so blown away that the dude sent me a package. So I gotta say thank you so very much, Cyrus. Really appreciate it. And again, thank you very much for your service, dude. All right. Okay. Seeing what I'm missing in the chat, making sure I'm not missing anything. Remember, okay, I'm going to install one tomorrow. Any tips or watch out for? Okay, so Wired011, you said Sportland has a TXV kit to make a non-adjustable TXV adjustable, KA4. I'm going to install one tomorrow. Any tips or to watch out for? It's on a 5-ton Aeon unit for a computer room. That's very interesting. I didn't even know that they had a kit to make a non-adjustable TXV adjustable. I mean, imagine if the valve's rebuildable, I can see how it's feasible to do that, but any advice? Just take your time. I've never done one, so I honestly don't know what you're expecting. I'm assuming you're just going to take the bottom of the valve apart and screw in the new part. Just make sure you pull a great vacuum, You know, I wish I had more to tell you, but yeah, I really don't know. I'd be interested if you want to send me pictures of it. I'd like to see this kit, Wired 011. I'd like to see what it is. Just like shoot me a quick pic of the before and after and show me like, you know, some pics of what you're doing. I'd be interested to see that. But yeah, I've never changed one from non-adjustable to adjustable. Yeah, Sackmandu, yeah, I will do that. That is a good one. So Sackmandu is asking me if I'll ever do a video on the actual Sporlan 90-30-1 charging method for charging a system with a receiver and a head pressure control valve. That is a really good idea, and I will do that. I will say, well, I won't. Let me make an email before I announce that. But yeah, I will work on that. That'd be a good idea for a video, and I could probably do that one where basically I'm going to measure out the condenser, figure out the total equivalent length of the return bins, find out the total volume of the condenser, figure out how much of the condenser you need to flood, and then do that calculation. So I'll do that. It's not a really, really hard thing to do. So yes, I will. Okay, so Mawad, you said studying commercial refrigeration book by Dick Wurz, work in commercial HVAC, 5+ years experience in HVAC, never touch low temp. Switch to low temp company or keep book learning low temp. You know what, bud? You just need to make the switch. But you need to be honest with the company and let them know that you're still learning, and hopefully they'll train you and you'll learn on the job. I mean, honestly, if you understand the refrigeration cycle and if you understand what saturation temperatures are, you got it, dude. You just got to, there's a little bit of a different control strategy, but you know, our trade isn't about remembering like exactly how things work. It's about being able to get in there and diagnose things. If you understand the refrigeration cycle, you can figure it out. It's not that hard. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world, but you got this. You could do it, dude. So, okay, Clayton, how long do you ride with another tech until you get your own work van after school? Dude, that one is totally up to you. It all depends on how much you retain from school and how much you show the service company you can do, okay? In a perfect world, like if money wasn't an issue, I'd like for someone to ride with me for 2-3 years, okay? Like a proper apprenticeship. But that's not realistic and that's not really going to happen. But in a perfect world, that's the bitchin' way to do it, because then you learn slowly and you learn how to do things, okay? But realistically, I would say that, you know, probably no more than a year. I'm going to be honest with you, most companies won't even keep you in a van for 3 months with someone else. But I mean, no more than a year, you should be able to pick up the basic stuff and be able to do basic preventative maintenances and then slowly venture out on your own. So, but it all just depends on the person. Prime time, you hate headmaster valves. Yeah. Yeah, you know, a lot of people don't like head pressure control valves. They don't bother me. But you know what? I'm in a mild climate. I'm in Southern California. So, you know, our winters don't get very cold. So, you know, I hear a lot of people up in the north and different things. And prime time, you're up in Canada, aren't you? If I remember right. So yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying that they have a lot of problems with them, but I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I think that the majority of the problems with like head pressure control valves and expansion valves and all that different stuff, honestly, dude, it's got to be not user error, but installation error. It's got to be poor refrigeration practices, man. It's got to be, you know, I don't know, but maybe you guys see something that I don't, because I don't have a lot of problems with head pressure control valves. Majority of the time, the problem with the head pressure control valve is that the system's undercharged or it has a refrigerant leak. That's the problems I run into. Or some dodo head went and bypassed it and didn't tell anybody. So, okay. Seeing what else I'm missing in here. I got to say thank you. I know Nightbot's in here, but I do have to address the guys. Thank you so very much for the supporters on Patreon. Really appreciate that. Okay. Okay. I already told you guys, I'm going to say it again, that I'm backed up on emails, meaning that I haven't been answering a lot of the emails that have been sent to me. So I will get to them. Okay. I'm trying to address some of them in this stream, but we will get to them. So let me see what else I've got on my list here. Yeah, that's the majority of my list. So let's throw some more questions down in the chat, guys, and I'll see what I can answer here for you guys. Make sure, if you can, throw them in caps lock so that way I don't miss them. So, nah, dude, Clayton, don't get me wrong, dude. Ralph, I really appreciate it, man. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of an asshole. So, and I know it. Okay. I expect a lot from technicians. So don't assume that I'm the nicest guy in the world. Okay. I will give respect when respect is given. But I can be, I do have a high standard that I set for our service technicians. So I don't want to make it out to seem like I'm the coolest dude in the world. I know I'm not. Okay. But I don't treat my guys like crap. I hope that they will respect me, and if they show respect, then we show respect. So, and another thing too, I really appreciate, that you say that, Clayton. That's a really cool thing. But I want to remind everybody too that I'm just a normal dude. I am not an HVAC god or anything like that. Okay. I make the same mistakes as you guys do. My shit stinks just as much as yours does. Okay. Sorry. Don't mean the bad words and all that stuff, but it's really, okay. It's true. I'm just a normal dude. Okay. I know the one thing that I have that's different than most people is I have, not different than most people, maybe it just puts me in a unique category, is that I have a very inquisitive mind and I'm very curious about things, and I do a lot of research on my own time. And that's what I stress for people that want to grow in this industry is you got to put in your own time. You got to do research. You got to look up manuals. You got to be curious about things. You got to ask questions. Okay. I've just always been a very inquisitive person. When I was coming up and I asked a question like, why do we do this? And I was told because we do, that wasn't enough for me. So I did research and I figured out why we did that. Okay. So I've just always been in that one. Jason honestly never worked with 407A, but I got to say, a refrigerant's a refrigerant. Okay. So, I do realize that with a lot of these new refrigerants, they have a high glide. Okay. And glide's a very confusing thing, but they have a high glide. But dude, it's just a refrigerant. Okay. If you understand the concepts of how a refrigerant works, I really can't say that I know that there's going to be something crazy hard about converting a 407A system, other than if you're going from a mineral oil to a POE oil, make sure you change the seals, make sure you change the, just follow the manufacturer's instructions. But honestly, I never worked with the stuff, so I don't have a strong opinion on it. True Blue, Israel Miller, you say True Blue. You mean the hoses? I don't know if you're asking me a question or if you're... Can you give me some context on that, Israel? Tell me what you're asking there, bud. Brian, dude, thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate it, man. Okay, Dimitri, do you need to use subcooling method charging in walk-in cooler and freezer? Okay, subcooling and superheat is a measurement of the performance of the system at that point in the system, okay? So I'm not going to tell you, no, you don't need subcooling, but I am going to say if you're working on a walk-in cooler and it has a receiver, okay, most of them do, typically you're going to start by clearing the sight glass when the system, and you're going to do that slowly. You're not just going to dump a bunch of refrigerant when it's 80 degrees in the box, okay? You're going to add refrigerant. You're going to let the box come down in temp. Once it gets closer to satisfying, you're going to clear the sight glass, and then you're going to check your evaporator superheat and adjust it accordingly, and then you're going to look at your compressor superheat. On a system with the receiver, subcooling is a cool tool to help you understand what's happening in the system, but the real question is if you're going to measure subcooling on a refrigeration system, where are you going to measure it? Are you going to measure it at the liquid line coming out of the condenser? Are you going to measure it at the liquid line coming out of the receiver? Are you going to measure it at the inlet to the TXV downstairs? Okay, the subcooling, you really need to understand what you're looking for with the subcooling. Okay, and essentially, on a system with the receiver, the short answer is no, you don't want to use subcooling because it's going to mislead you. Okay, but the long answer is that you're going to clear your sight glass, so essentially you're making sure that the refrigerant's properly subcooled, right? The problem with the receiver is that it's a giant storage tank. Okay, and the refrigerant. It's just an inaccurate way of thinking that you're just going to use subcooling to charge it, okay? So on a walk-in cooler, if it has an expansion valve and it has a receiver, you're going to run a clear, solid column of liquid going to your TXV, and then you're going to adjust your superheat at your evaporator after the box comes down to temp, and you're going to go from there. Now, you don't just stop at superheat and subcooling. You have to look at everything. You're listening to how the compressor sounds. You're feeling the suction line coming back. You're checking amp draw. I just can't tell you like you just do this, okay? You have to understand how the refrigeration system works, okay? So, Penco PT, If any of you guys didn't get the confirmation email from your entry into the giveaway, send me an email and I'll try to get to them, because I can access the entries and resend confirmation emails. So you guys got to send them though, because if you guys all send them, the next Monday at 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm working. So I'm not going to be able to do it. But if you send them over the next couple days, if you guys haven't gotten a confirmation email, I'll try to get to them. But send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Okay. Clayton, how much money would you say would need to be spent on tools before getting your first HVAC job? Dude, don't go break the bank. But it also depends on where you're going to work, okay? Different regions are different. Here in Southern California, in my area, you come to work for me, the only thing I require of my guys is to bring a portable electric drill, okay? Like a DeWalt cordless drill, all right? Bring a set of gauges, and bring hand tools. I provide vacuum pumps, recovery machines, torches, all that stuff. So don't go out and buy that. I don't, different areas of the country are different. I hear that I've, recently talked to some people in Texas that buy a lot of their own tools. I don't know if that's a thing out there. I don't know if you guys are here in Texas or whatever. It all depends on the regions you're in, okay? But don't go blow your wad on a bunch of tools and then get there and then realize that they're junk tools or they're not cool or, So what I suggest you do is reach out to the company that you're thinking about, or reach out to companies in general and just ask them what their requirements are. Reach out to the community college and ask them, what kind of tools do you think companies want you to have? It also depends on whether you're going into commercial or residential, different things. So basic hand tools, yeah, that's cool, but don't go buy a bunch of stuff, because I'm going to tell you too, a lot of people buy all these fancy tools that their teachers show them in school, and then you don't even realize that what they're showing you is not even the cool stuff, okay? Once you get out and start talking to guys that work in the field, that's when you're going to realize what's effective and what works, okay? So, a few things, but don't go buy a bunch of stuff until you start working for someone, okay? And then you slowly start buying it then. A lot of times too, companies have like even with my guys, if they want to buy a tool and they don't have the money to buy it and it's something that I don't provide, I'll help them out and they can pay me back. So a lot of companies do that kind of stuff. I'm not saying everyone's going to do it, but just don't go buy a bunch of stuff yet, because you might find out that it's not very high quality, even though you think it is, or different stuff like that. So, okay. Let me see what else I'm missing in here. Okay. How much? Okay. So yeah, I got to that one. You did not get the confirmation email. I saw that. Yeah, Andrew, I get that. You buy your own stuff just because you like what you want to buy for a very specific task. That's cool. Just remember that if you're buying your own tools and you work for a company, make sure that your company is willing to reimburse you for those tools if you break them or something like that too, okay? Or if they wear out because of normal wear and tear, things like that you want to think about, okay? So if they are willing to provide you with meters and gauges and all this different stuff, right? Well, I'm assuming more than likely they're going to replace that stuff when it gets worn out, right? But if you buy your own stuff, they may not replace your stuff. So you just want to know how the company's policies are and different things and being accepting it. Me personally, if I went to work for someone today, I'd probably buy a majority of my own hand tools, and that'd just be something I'd be willing to accept. If they get worn out or I lose them, it's my dime. I'm not going to try to get the company back for that stuff, but okay. Ralph, what do I think about using a Hvacr? Hvacr, I honestly don't have one. I've never had one. I understand what they're used for, but I will say that a Hvacr is very difficult. If you read, like I've thought about buying them before, and then I started doing a bunch of research on them. And I realized that Copeland, on their scroll compressors, they really don't recommend using mega ohm meters, okay? And Copeland, and even if you read in the mega ohm meter manuals and different things, they tell you that, especially when you're dealing with compressors, everything affects the mega ohm reading on that on the windings, okay? The temperature, the amount of moisture in the system, and all kinds of different things. So you have to understand that. So you can't just go buy something and assume you put it on there and it says bad. If you go buy that Supco mega ohm meter off the shelf at United Refrigeration, right, and you just throw it on the compressor and it says bad, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. The system could have a bunch of moisture in it, and it could just have a really great path to ground because it has a lot of moisture in it. So you have to understand how the tool works. So do I have a need for a Hvacr? Me personally, no, but I'm not knocking someone for using it. I just don't have a need for it, and I haven't been able to justify the cost of a good one. I don't like buying cheap tools. So I was looking at a Hvacr, and I was looking at like the fancy Fluke one, and I just couldn't justify the I don't know, it was like $600-700 cost on it. And it just, just didn't seem like it was going to pay off on me. Okay. That's just me personally. You deal with the bigger industrial stuff. If you do a lot of electrical work where you have, where a Hvacr would really be effective and work really great is if you're actually just analyzing wires. Okay. If you're looking for an electrical short, for an intermittent short, different things like that. Yeah. A Hvacr might help, but be cautious when you're using them on compressors. Okay. Let me see what I got going on here. How did I master quoting repairs? This is new for you, and you're in the trades. Any advice? Okay, so that's an interesting one. So mastering repairs. So essentially, I made a lot of mistakes, just like I've always done. Okay, and what I did was we used to quote things, and they started taking us longer and longer, and so we started adjusting our quote times. And hopefully, you catch it before it becomes a big loss for you. But essentially, I've done most of the repairs that I do these days, and I kind of know that if I'm going to quote a compressor replacement with nothing fancy to it, no crazy roof access, nothing insane, it's going to be an 8-hour job. It's going to be quoted at 8 hours. If it's got a really difficult access to the roof, it might be a 10 or a 12-hour job. If it's got super difficult access to the roof and we got to climb through scuttle holes and all kinds of stuff, I might quote 2 guys. Okay, so it all just depends on the situation that you're working in. So, not every job's the same. Here's how I work with things. Okay. Again, probably not the greatest business advice. Okay. Don't look at me for business advice, but as far as the way that we run things is I'll quote out a compressor replacement at 8 hours, right? And the customer approves it. But if it takes me 6, I charge them 6, even though they quoted me at 8. Okay. So that's how I do it. And my customer knows that. So they know, I always tell them, okay, this quote might be a little bit high if you go compare it to someone else, but I'm going to be honest with you. If I get it and it takes me less time, I'm going to charge you less time. I just like to make the customer aware of what it potentially could take. Okay. So that's just how I do things. Again, not saying that's the best business advice in the world, but that's just how I roll. Okay. So Sen, you're from San Antonio, minus a recovery machine and recovery tanks. Typically it depends on how big or small the company is that dictates. Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. I want to remind you guys that the giveaway is next week on the live stream. So if you guys haven't already, the Nightbot should be throwing out the giveaway link. Okay. So click on the giveaway link and enter it. If you, so it's third of the way up there. I'll actually copy and paste it down here into the bottom real quick for you guys. Here's the giveaway link. If you guys haven't already, enter the giveaway and make sure to confirm the email. Okay. Nate C. Yeah, I'm in Riverside. So yeah, 15 minutes if there's no traffic, 45 minutes if I got to sit in traffic on the 10. That's how long it takes me to get to Covina. So the funny thing is that West Covina is probably 20 miles away from us. But yeah, we can hit a bunch of traffic on the 10 going out to LA. So, okay, guys, throw some more questions in here and I'll see if I can get to them. What else do I need to cover? Yeah, Downey, they have a lot of classes at the Downey Energy Education Center, I believe is what it's called, and there's also one in Irwindale too. Okay, so do I like low temp or HVAC work better? Which is more profitable? I mean, if you do your job right, they're both profitable, right? Because if you price your time right, I mean, I can't say that one's more profitable than the other. Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question because in general, I'd say that HVAC work is easier, but then again, sometimes it's not. So in all honesty, I kind of view them as the same. I love working on refrigeration. I like working in walk-in boxes and different things like that. I dig that. Okay. If I could work down in the restaurant inside the walk-in box, I prefer that than standing on the roof all day long. But then again, I'm working on the roof probably to get to the condensing unit or something like that for the walk-in box. So it all depends, man. I will say I'm different in the fact that I like working in restaurants. I like working on reach-in coolers, even though they're tight and greasy and dirty. I dig doing that kind of work. So I'm probably peculiar in that way. Would I suggest starting out in residential or commercial? If me personally, I'd probably jump into commercial if someone gave me the opportunity, but a lot of times it's difficult to get that opportunity. So you might need to start in residential. My thing is with residential is I like commercial because I'm not a salesman. Okay. I'm a salesman in the sense that I recommend things to the customer, but more so, it's not about selling and upselling and different things on the commercial side. And unfortunately, the residential side is kind of going that way because of the amount of companies out there and different things. So I personally don't like to sell things, and I just like to fix things and then tell the customer what needs to be done to fix it right. So I like commercial in that sense. Jason, yeah, if Nightbot will let you, you can. I can't remember if I have the links on or off. But yeah, I don't mind if you post links, Jason. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Brad, new California law as of January 1st of 2019 is that on new installations, we cannot use R404A anymore. So we're still allowed to use it on repairs, but what they consider a new installation is an expansion valve change, a compressor change, or an evaporator change. So essentially, we can't use 404. It's a mess. So, and they really haven't figured out the details, because think of all the ice machines out there, and they do have it like separated between remote, self-contained, and different things, but it's so confusing right now. So essentially, these are the SNAP EPA rules that were going to be passed amongst the whole United States, right? And then we had the administration change, and they put all the EPA junk on hold and basically held back on it. Well, our beautiful state of California basically came in and said, no, we can't do that. We're going to institute our own laws. So it's a California state law that on new installations, we can't use R404A refrigerant anymore. What, you know, the trippy thing is that they're actually being harder on R404A than they are on R22, which is just, I don't know, dude. They honestly haven't figured it out. But yeah, it's a pain in the butt. We can't use 404. Okay, great question, Will. Do I buy common parts local or online? I buy local. Okay. There's a few things I buy online, mostly tools. Okay. And it's not because necessarily they have the best prices, but it's because of the availability. One of the weaknesses I find in supply houses is that they don't have enough of the tools that I'm interested in. So I find myself looking online, finding them in stock and ordering them and getting them within a day or two, versus asking a supply house to bring it in and then, waiting a week or whatever and having to pay a bunch of shipping and freight and different things. But I try to support my local supply houses as much as possible. So we buy, even though I know I can probably source things out, I buy temperature controllers, dryers, refrigerants, filters, all that stuff at my local supply houses. And I don't really favor one supply house. I typically go between two different supply house chains and try to be fair to both of them, because they typically both treat me really well. And we do, equal amount of business with both of the supply house chains in our area. So, but yes, I try to go local as much as possible, because the supply houses, they need to stay in business. They need to be able to supply us with the equipment, just like, us being worried about the internet taking over residential and selling and all that stuff. We have to worry about the supply houses. So we got to keep those guys in business. So support your supply houses as much as possible. My opinion. Okay. Josh, what is your opinion on a clear sight glass means the system is properly charged? You were told that a sight glass can be flashing and the system is properly charged and operating correctly. Okay, so that is a great question that's kind of loaded, because there's a lot to that. It depends on what you're working on. So remember, a sight glass is a window into the system at that point in the system. Okay, we're operating off of the theory that a thermal expansion valve needs a solid column of liquid going to it for it to work correctly. Okay, that's the way an expansion valve is designed, is to have a solid column of liquid going to it. So it all depends on where the sight glass is in the system. Okay, I know that there's a train of thought a long time ago when we had the R12 phase out. We had a bunch of different alternative refrigerants for R12, and there was a lot of misunderstanding about these drop-in refrigerants. Let's just use 409A. Okay, that was one of the drop-in refrigerants for R12. So what you would do is take out the R12, you would put R409A in the system, and the misconception, because there wasn't a lot of great information out there, was that you put in 80% of the charge and you let it go. Okay, well, if you have a R12 system that had 12 pounds and you just put in 80% of the charge, and the system has an expansion valve and a sight glass, you're going to run into a problem, right? But at the same time, on those R12 systems, when we were dropping in the R409A, again, we were taking all the R12 out and we were putting 409A in, the systems weren't really designed for that higher pressure refrigerant, okay? And what we had was a lot of thermal overload situations, And we had compressors that would overheat and go bad if you cleared the sight glass on them, okay? And in my opinion, the reason why this was happening was because they weren't really designed for that refrigerant and people weren't understanding how to use the refrigerant properly, okay? So some things probably needed to happen inside that system, maybe increasing the size of the condenser, different things, okay? In my opinion, that led to the mind thought, or so let me go back. So what we ended up doing on a lot of those R12 systems was you would undercharge them. Okay, so I can remember thinking or knowing that if I went to an R12 system that had an expansion valve and I put in a clear sight glass, okay, charged it up, the system would typically go off on thermal overload, okay? We would have some problems. Again, it was more of a design problem, okay? So what we would do is we would undercharge that system. You would go to like 3/4 of a sight glass and the system would kind of half-ass work, okay? The equipment was also very forgiving back then. That wasn't the right thing to do, but it was because of a lack of information and we didn't understand how the systems worked. So in my opinion, that led to the to the thought that a system can properly operate without a clear solid column of liquid going to the expansion valve, okay? Now, another thing, so, the way an expansion valve works, if you read anybody's literature, is it has to have a solid column of liquid going to it. Remember what I said, though, too, is that a sight glass is just a window into the system at that point in the system, right? So what happens if you have a kink after the sight glass? Okay, you might have some flash gas. You might have a point where it's flashing because it's metering the refrigerant. So you might not have a solid column of liquid at the expansion valve. It's not very practical, but for the most part, you should always have a sight glass right before the expansion valve. That's the best place for it because then you know if you truly have a solid column of liquid. But you can't just clear a sight glass and move on. Like I said earlier, you have to look at everything in the system. You have to look at the superheat, the subcooling, the amp draw of the compressor. You have to look at everything. Remember, we diagnose for the big picture, right? We're solving the problem, not the symptom, right? Okay, so you can't just clear the sight glass and move on. You have to evaluate the system and evaluate it from that point. So looking at the amp draw, looking at the suction gas coming back to the compressor. How hot is the head on the compressor getting? How hot can it get? Okay. Now, one of the things that we run into in the field is that maybe we don't have the information out there. So we don't know how hot the compressor is supposed to get, right? What's the maximum temperature of that compressor head? How far away from the compressor should we measure the discharge line? 6 inches, 12 inches, 10 inches. It all depends. Okay. It's getting better because if you download like the Copeland app or the Tecumseh app, you can get more information about the compressors and how to properly diagnose them. Okay. So I know I made that a really long question, but it's, yes, you're supposed to have a clear sight glass, but it also depends on everything else in the system. Okay. So, okay. What else do we got going on here? Why did I just see someone say Hitler? I don't even know what that said. Anyways, okay. Yeah, big picture. Can't say it enough. All right. German Chua. How's it going, bud? You asked for a shout out. There you go. No, Clayton. No scary. Oh yeah, the iHacky Training Center. Great post there, Jason. You guys, Jason posted a great link about the iHacky training classes. Before I answer your question, Clayton, I'm going to go talk about Jason's thing real quick. So the iHacky training thing, they have all kinds of great subsidized training classes that'll help you get acclimated in the industry. They'll help the advanced techs and all kinds of things. So check out the iHacky stuff. They've got great information, and you can get NATE training. A lot of times you can look up a company called It's About Q in Southern California, and then also hvacr.edu. Look up that one too, and a lot of times they have subsidized education depending on what state you're in, and you can get NATE training for free and different things like that. So it all depends on the budgets and different things. Clayton, so any stories about a strange or scary experience while on a job site? No. And it's interesting that you say especially in LA. LA is really not that. I live in the suburbs, dude. I live 40 miles, 50 miles from LA, but still, LA has this stigma of being this weird place. Okay. If you go to Hollywood, that's probably about the weirdest place in LA. There's a bunch of creepy weirdos and stuff walking the streets. Other than that, yeah, there's some ghettos and different things, but it's not that scary of a place. Yeah, I guess if you go into Compton or something like that, that's one of the big cities. It might be kind of scary, but so any weird stories? No, just lots of silly driving stuff, man. I've seen all kinds of bad accidents and crazy people on the road. That I've seen a lot of. But other than crazy stories, I'll have to think about that one, and maybe I'll try to think of some interesting stories and come up on the next live stream. Do I prefer to hire Nate certified techs. Geo asked that. Yeah, I prefer a Nate tech, sure. Okay, but I'm going to tell you that a Nate tech doesn't mean you're better than anybody. Okay, what a Nate tech means to me is that it was someone that took the time to further their education and continue to further their education, because to hold a Nate certification, you have to have continuing education hours. Okay, the same thing goes for the HVAC excellence trainings too. Okay, you have to have continuing education. Same thing goes for the RSES CM exam and different things. In order to hold that certification, you got to maintain it. So you got to do training classes and different things. Okay, so that's what Nate means to me. It means someone that has taken the time to further their education on their own time. Okay, it's a very important thing. Does Nate do something for me as a company owner? No. Okay, Nate doesn't get me any further. It's not getting me any more money. As a company owner, hiring Nate techs, it's not doing any of that stuff for me, okay? But any training, in my opinion, is better than no training. So continue to further your education. No matter who you work for, if you continue to further your education, you are more valuable to the company you work for or the company that you're going to work for tomorrow, okay? So keep continuing your education. Don't stop. There's so much information out there, okay? RSES.org, they're a great training organization. ESCO's got all kinds of great stuff. Jason Objut, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, dude. He was in here earlier. He's part of ESCO. They've got all kinds of great training information. They're actually working with RSES too, which is an interesting, that's like, we could talk about that one because there's all kinds of drama in that. But there's lots of continuing education training out there that you guys can do. So any of them is better than none of them. Okay, so Jonathan asked me, how was I able to get the field piece S-Man 480? Okay, so I'm going to go into this. This is a great thing. People ask me, so I have the field piece S-Man 480, and I've had it for a very long time. I made a mistake when I got it a year ago. I've been a beta tester for it. Okay, so I've seen the models of the S-Man 480 long before it said field piece on it and different things. Okay, it was in its beta stages. Okay, so I've been through probably 4 iterations of it, and it's changed each time for the better. They added things, they listened to the beta tester's suggestions, and essentially we're given the tool and we're told to break it. Okay, we're told to abuse it. They say, go take this outside and submerge it in water. Do these different things. I'm not saying that you can do that with them, but I'm saying this is the abuse they want us to do to them, to test them, to find out their limits, so that way they can say what they can do. Okay. How did I become a beta tester? I've done beta testing for field piece, and I've done beta testing for iManifold a long time ago. And the way that I became a beta tester was being active on social media. Okay, that's the way to do it. Be active on social media, be honest, and be fair to the tool manufacturers. Okay, so if you have a problem with your field piece meter, and I'm going to tell you how it worked out with Okay, so this is how I got in with field piece. I bought into the field piece setup all the way back when the original S-Man came out, and they had a whole bunch of wireless accessories that you can plug into it and different things. Mr. Jim Bergman, who's a tool manufacturer now, and he's a really smart educator and different things. Okay. He's with Redfish and Measure Quick. That's his companies. But anyways, he used to be with iManifold, but before iManifold, he was with True Tech Tools, and I found True Tech Tools online. And he had a bunch of videos where he was demoing how the field piece stuff worked, and he was showing the wireless capabilities. And so he sold me on it. I bought a bunch of the field piece products, and then I had a problem with it. But instead of being a punk, and this was before Facebook, right? I'm pretty sure it was before Facebook. It was more or less, we had HVAC Talk was our online forum. So we really didn't have a big social presence on Facebook yet. I don't think the groups were a thing on Facebook yet. But anyways, HVAC Talk was a forum. And instead of going on HVAC Talk and bad-mouthing field piece, what I did was I figured out how to make a YouTube video. YouTube was a thing back then, but it was real small. And I figured out how to make it private, and I shared it with field piece and said, hey, here's the problem that I'm having with the manifold, and this is what happened when I did this, and this is what happened when I did that. And when I shared that with them, they were like, wow, that was cool. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for being honest and not being a punk in the forums. And I did that a few times, and then they asked me some questions. I was having problems updating the manifold and different things, and it was that correspondence with Fieldpiece that got me in with Fieldpiece, okay? And then over the years, I've tested various things for them, but then just being active on social media, same thing with the iManifold products. Was in the very beginning, I had some questions about it, and I asked lots of questions, and I shared that information, okay? And again, I wasn't going on Facebook saying, oh my gosh, this tool sucks, it did this, it did that. Be discreet. Send Fieldpiece a private message. Say, hey, this is the problem I'm having. Give them a call. Say, and just make it known that you're active on social media and be cool about it. And that's how I got in. So, and I've been testing the manifold for about a year now, and I'm pretty sure I have the final result. I don't think they're going to send me another one. I think this is it. And it'll be released here in the next month or so. And it's not just me. There's a bunch of other guys out there beta testing this product too. And a lot of manufacturers do this in different ways. There's tons of manufacturers that beta test their products. So, okay. Let's see what else I'm missing here. Oh, Adam, I get it. There's a lot of people, I'm assuming you're talking about Nate. There's a lot of people that get upset about Nate, because it costs them more money. I do have to say, this last year when I had to go re-up my certifications or whatever, it did seem kind of silly that I still had to pay money even though I had my continuing education hours. But it's just one of those things, It was a couple bucks and I paid it, so. Yeah, Clayton, I've had plenty of arguments with customers, man. That one, yeah, that's another thing too. I can cover that on. I don't want to go into that one right now, but I can, yeah. No, Mr. Ice, you don't really hear much about iManifold anymore. And the embarrassing thing is I have just about $4,000 worth of iManifold stuff sitting in my van in a backpack. And it's just disappointing with, but hey, I'm not going to talk crap. So you just don't hear it, but they still have the best range. The iManifold products still have the best range. I will be using the iManifold stuff this summer because it does work with Measure Quick. So I just haven't been using it very much because the Fieldpiece became really easy with the range that they had on their stuff. But I still will use it this summer. That's why I haven't gotten rid of it. So, yeah. Okay, so yeah, many more. I kind of answered that one earlier, dude. It could mean low refrigerant. It's hard to say, man. It could be an airflow problem. He's asking about his vending machine evaporator coil. It all depends, man. You really need to have a contractor come in and look at that thing. It could be low refrigerant, though. Yeah, Jason, I see what you're saying there. I don't know the context of what you're saying, but I'm assuming maybe you're talking about the Vito. Vito, if people don't know, they have a discounted tool bag program for students. So if you tell them that you're a student, they'll sell you refurbished tool bags at a great discount, and they still will last forever. So great stuff. Chris, is the iManifold not on YouTube out of respect for Bergman, or are people just over it? That's a good question. I mean, are you saying that they don't have a presence on YouTube anymore? I don't know, man. I mean, I think that a lot of people got burnt out with what happened with Jim Bergman. But I mean, they still have the product is still the same. Their app isn't the greatest, but yeah, I don't. I need some context to your question there, Adam. Yeah, no, I really don't have anything on that, Clayton, about animals or anything. Guys, it's really time for me to wrap this up. Because it is dinner time. It is 6:30 here, and my family should be home from their day at the aquarium is where they went today. So that's one of the cool things about being an HVAC service technician is you get to come home and hear the stories from your family where they went for their spring break day. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic there because they got to go to the aquarium today, and I went to work. So, oh yeah. Yeah, the YouTubers, Adam, they tend to, yeah, they have been kind of just letting go of it. I honestly think that, again, iManifold still has some great stuff, and I'm not talking crap about their products. Okay, guys, it just, I really don't want to go too far into that because I can talk stuff that I probably shouldn't say. So, sorry, Ruben, dude. I'll go for a few more minutes, but if you guys have any more questions, throw them down in here. Clayton, I really don't have any stories about animals, but I will think about some interesting, scary moments maybe for another thing. Yeah, Roger, I'll try to do something. I have to be careful now because, I don't know. I mean, I guess I did a van tour. I just got to be careful about equipment and different things because People can figure out where I live now, so I gotta be cautious about that stuff. But yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, I am going to wrap this up. So I really, really appreciate you guys coming in here. Do me a favor. Send me emails, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Questions, okay? And we'll try to get caught up on the emails. I know you guys have a bunch of emails. Have I seen a defrost system that works off of Evap fan motor amps? I'm in school right now. My teacher talked to... I have no idea what that is, dude. I'd be interested if you can send me some information about that, Josh. I will do some research on that, bud. So send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com and ask me that question in the email, and I'll do some research. That's really interesting. So, yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Really appreciate you guys coming in here, and we'll catch you on the next one.